edition of the Roy's Boys podcast, powered by Carolina Electrical Services. For all your electrical needs, call 704-320-7357, and Jacob Waddle will make sure to take care of those for you guys. Josh and Anthony are here again as we just concluded the Duke preview. So this episode is going to focus on senior night. Saturday night is senior night for Kenny Williams, Luke May, and Cam Johnson. And what I wanted to do, Anthony, was just spend 5 to 10 minutes on each guy, just saying what the guys meant to you as a fan, to the program, to the community, as all three are active around the town, and just really a chance for us to publicly thank them for what they did on the court and off the court for Carolina basketball.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely sounds like a great plan. I mean, this group of seniors, I think, is one that may not rank up there in some people's minds with some of the all-time senior classes, but it's got to be pretty close. I mean, these guys have really had some special moments, and, you know, all of these guys really, Luke May and Cam Johnson, at least, are having career years, and, Kenny Williams, yeah, he's had a little bit of a shooting slump, but once again continues to be a fantastic defender. So this is a class that I think a lot of people are going to remember for a long, long time. So I definitely think that, that there is a reason why you need to talk about them. And, all of these guys, they have a special place in everyone's heart because they're part of the Carolina family.
Yeah, and the first guy we're going to start with is Luke May. I don't know if you got a chance to see today with your work some of the stuff coming out from Roy Williams, talking about him at his press conference and
right.
At his own. And then our buddy Daggum Box Scores tweeted out a montage of the growth of him with tweets from fans talking about Luke May as a freshman, with the clip of him front-ending a layup at Indiana, and then the sophomore year where he has the shot against Kentucky, the junior year where he's putting up 30 and 15 against NC State, and then this year where he's just done the stuff that we grew accustomed to doing last year. And when I think about Luke May, he's like the college version of the American dream. If you work hard at something, you can have anything you want. And this is just a kid that chose Carolina because he wanted to be a Tar Heel, whether it was as a preferred walk-on or not. Of course, we all know he did come on scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Showed up as just a goofy-looking guy. His freshman picture isn't the most attractive thing in the world. And the guy as a freshman, literally, I'm always tough on freshmen because they always look bad, and he was one of the worst-looking freshmen I've probably ever seen outside of Larry Drew. But this is a guy now that, for me, he's kind of inspired me in what you and I are wanting to do in the broadcast. To be like, hey, look, if we put in the time and the effort, we can get where we want to get to. Because this kid from Huntersville, North Carolina, is a Carolina basketball legend. He's done stuff that Tyler Hansbrough, James Worthy, Antoine Jamison, those guys never did. And he also won a national championship. And, just a testament to his work ethic, his commitment to being better. Loves being a Tar Heel, gave the program everything he had from the moment he stepped on campus, and really made this program and a community a better place.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more there, and I think, really that weekend of the Sweet 16 and then, of course, the Elite Eight game against Kentucky, I think was the turning point in his career. That's really what I think made him into the player that he is now today. I think that really just gave him a confidence booster when he was able to hit that shot against Kentucky. Now, of course, he went to the Final Four and didn't play quite as well as he played in that previous weekend, but I think that, when you talk about a guy that just completely dominated State in every game that he played against them, he has done similar stuff against Duke as well. And, then you see, you're saying this season, he's been up and down at times, and people have questioned him even to this day. He comes out and puts up some of these sensational performances down the stretch, including, the performance against NC State in the second game, and then the performance against Duke, which I thought was probably the best performance of the season. And then you're talking about the other night, 17 and 20 in the game against Boston College, and becomes the first guy since Bryce Johnson to have over 20 rebounds in a game. this is just a guy that, like you said, and, he's a guy that, you're right. He's such a hard worker that it inspires you to say, look, this guy he pretty much just got here on work ethic. That's not to say that Luke May is not talented, but to where he is right now, from where he was as a freshman, is just miraculous. I mean, this is a guy that has put in so much time in the gym. I mean, we've heard so many great things from Roy, from media members that tell us, he's in there sometimes on the morning of games at 8 a.m. and we don't play until 8 p.m. and he's up there, warming up, making sure that, he's got his jumper ready to go. He's always a guy that finds, he's made basketball a lifestyle. And I told you this last week, and I truly believe it. I really do think that Luke, he can stick on an NBA roster for a year or two just purely based on the fact that he is really he's got that work ethic, and I think he does have some ability from the outside, which is what you always need now as a stretch four at the NBA level. But I think he's also shown that, look, I mean, a lot of people criticized him last year after the loss to Texas A&M, saying he wasn't strong enough inside. He's not able to rebound with some of these guys. This year, I think, even though he may not be having the same year scoring-wise, I think he's still producing there. And I think the other thing is, now, he's rounded himself out. He is now a fantastic rebounder. And, I think that could carry over into the NBA game, and that's one of the main reasons why I think, he'll make a roster, stick around for a year or two, but really just, talent-wise, you just wonder if he's got enough to hang around in the NBA. So that's why, he's going to be one of the guys that I think we're all going to be keeping an eye on Saturday night, because this is our last chance to see him at Carolina, and really probably our last chance to see him play at this type of level again. Of course we'll see him in the NCAA tournament, but in the Smith Center, that's the final time that we'll be able to see him play in a Carolina jersey at the level that he's playing right now.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to Kenny. And Roy said today that he's probably done more for this program than we could have ever thought when he signed. Of course, you remember he was a once VCU commit. Shaka Smart leaves VCU for Texas and changed his commitment to Carolina. And he's been what we knew when we were recruiting him, a guy that is very capable of shooting the three ball, although, as you said, he struggled from this year. But as a willing defender, whether individually or as a team defender, and that's what, even when he hasn't shot the ball, he's defended. Mm-hmm. And that's something I think I'll always remember, is because in today's game, it's so easy for when you're not shooting the ball, well, I'm not going to give effort defensively. As a freshman, even in a limited role, and this is a known shooter, he made 1 3. And that was in the SEC tournament against Pittsburgh. 1 3. That was it for a guy that they got his recruiting and became a national player by shooting the basketball, but was still giving it his all defensively. And then you think about the year we won the national championship. Unfortunately, he wasn't on the floor, but was still a very big part because he was growing into a leader even as a sophomore, because he was that voice on the sideline with Theo Pinson, yelling at the guys to get back on defense, and calling out switches and all this other stuff. And that's what I think about Kenny Williams is, you know how I am about guards that will defend and rebound really. And for me, he's up there. Because even when that ball's not going in the basket, and I do think at some point that ball's going to go in for him this year, because he's just too good of a shooter. He's still going to give me what we need on the defensive end. And that's what I love about him, just a competitor. We've seen this kid grow. He's mentioned it, with his faith. I love that he's open about that in a time and in an era where being religious isn't always looked upon as a good thing. He's very open about that's who he is. We always see him doing stuff in the community at the hospitals, reading the kids. So really just a great example and a great role model for young Tar Heel basketball fans.
Yeah, one of the things with Kenny Williams is he hasn't been the most consistent shooter, as you talked about. But when you need him to make a big shot, it seems like Kenny Williams is that guy that can go out and knock down some shots that you need. He even did it the other night against Boston College when they had closed the lead down, to within, I think it was 16, and he hits a three-pointer to make it send it back to a 19-point game. And people will say, well, how critical is that? How crucial is that? Look, that's just one example. But this is a guy that really, throughout the years, has come up, clutch when you've needed him to come up clutch. And you mentioned the fact that he is just such a great defender. I mean, highly regarded as one of the best defenders in the ACC. And is a guy that if he was to make the NBA, that would be the reason that he does. If he was to make it to the next level. I think when you talk about Kenny, and, the thing that everybody's going to remember about him most, is the fact that, he was such a great defensive player. He takes so many charges. But here's the thing that sticks out the most in my mind. Earlier this year, us, along with Roy Williams, we were all kind of wondering, okay, where is the leader on this team? Where is that vocal leader? Luke's the guy that leads by example, but we all know Luke is not the most vocal guy out on the court. He's very quiet, kind of just goes about his business, but he kind of, guys will sort of go off of what he's doing. If he's having a good game, the whole team will sort of get boosted. We needed that vocal leader. Kenny Williams was the guy that was turned to, and he stepped up into that role, and I think has been a major influence on why Carolina is where they are right now. I think he's one of the main reasons that a lot of guys have elevated their defensive play, because I think as the senior leader, he challenged these guys and told them, look, we've got to step up on the defensive end. It's great to play good offensively, like in that game against Gonzaga, but shots aren't always going to fall. I mean, just, for him, I'm assuming he was probably like, just take a look at me. I've had my moments so far this year where I've really struggled shooting the ball. But if I'm out there as active as I can be on defense, you're going to create those turnovers, you're going to create those charges, and that's what we've seen from this Carolina team, and that hasn't disappeared from Kenny Williams. So, I mean, his mindset of defense first is something that is not seen by many around the game today, and I think it's just something that's so refreshing for Tar Heel fans and a reason why he's so special and will be remembered for a while.
Yeah, you made a good point about the leadership, and it really started after that embarrassing Louisville loss, where, like I just said, we got embarrassed on our home floor. We got beat by 20, the worst home loss under Roy Williams. And it was a time where the coach needed to publicly challenge his team in the media, although we knew it was going to happen in practice. And we kind of called him out, well, you need to be better. You need to lead by example. And I remember he joined the Carolina Insider podcast recently after that game, and he openly admitted that he was going to take a bigger leadership role. He's backed that up with his play. Although we've mentioned the shooting isn't there, but he's still defending, and at some point that ball is going to go through the basket. We'll move to our last guy, who the ball has gone through the basket at a almost historic rate this year, and that's Cam Johnson. The grad transfer will take part in senior night activities. And we were talking to the Duke preview. This guy, even though he's only been there 2 years, we've just grown to take him as one of our own. Would you feel like he would have, he signed here and he's played his whole career, but this is a 2-time transfer. Started at Vanderbilt, transferred to Pitt. Now he's a big part on a team that's about to go compete for a national championship. And if you look at this year, he's shooting 51% from the field and the high 40% from three, which leads the conference as a top 5 nationally. Just a spectacular season. He has finally gotten healthy. We've seen his game grow from a guy that was recruited as a spot-up shooter and transferred in as a spot-up shooter to a guy that can put the ball on the floor and create and put it back to the basket. He has become a much more willing and able rebounder, and has really developed into a NBA draft prospect, which we probably didn't think was possible when he transferred in, but that's where he is now. And then just, off the floor, he's always doing something with the little kids at camps and practices, engaging them and letting them be a part of something special, and not being one of those guys that isn't a sense to the, he loves the spotlight. He doesn't shy away from the media. Just all around a good kid. Glad he's finally healthy, and it's been a really big part of this year's team success.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I think about Cam Johnson that no one's going to talk about is the fact that, look, we've talked so much about Kenny Williams stepping up as a leader. I think throughout the year, Cam Johnson has also sort of stepped up as a leader. He does show emotion sometimes, when he gets into some of these hot streaks that we've seen. And, I mean, you talked about it. He's a guy that, at 6'9", you knew that he was a guy that was capable of rebounding the basketball. But when he was at Pittsburgh, he just was never really thought of having to play that role. And when he got to Carolina, Roy Williams looked at him and said, son, you're 6'9". You got to rebound the ball. And, that's what I think, like you said, has kind of taken him to another level, because I think a lot of people saw him as the spot-up shooter. And here's the thing. How many of those are there in college basketball today? There are tons of them. That is what the NBA is looking for right now, is those spot-up shooters in the second round. That was kind of the area that he was always expected to be at, and he's still probably a second-round pick. But, I think he definitely has shown the willingness to go inside and try to create his own shot. He actually hit a step-back shot the other night, which is something that we haven't seen from him. He's not really a guy that normally can create on his own. He's usually a guy that needs ball screens to have a lot of success. But I just, the quick release and just everything that he's done this year is just remarkable. I mean, the fact that he's shooting in the high 40% from three in the ACC, where you've got guys that defend at a high a level as probably any conference in the league, maybe outside of the Big Ten, because the Big Ten always has those low-scoring games. I think that you just have to give this guy so much credit. He's a guy that was in an awkward situation when he came to Carolina, because, he was already a two-time transfer. You're going to a school that, let's be really honest, is not known for landing transfer players. Most of the Blue Bloods aren't known for landing transfer players. That's just not how it works. Usually you get recruited by them. If you don't, when you hit the transfer market, you just know I'm not going to one of the big schools more than likely. Now, we've seen it open up the last few years with, of course, Cam and then Reed Travis going to Kentucky. But I think for Cam, the fact that he was recruited by Roy Williams and they really wanted him there, as you said, I think this year the difference is he's finally fully healthy, because last year he just could not get healthy to save his life. Every time that we thought, okay, he's finally shaken off an injury, there was another one that would pop up. So now, he's playing at as good of a level as you could ask. He's a guy that I think is probably the biggest difference between, Carolina being a middle-of-the-pack team in terms of contenders for the national championship, being a 4 seed or a 3 seed like some of us thought coming into the year, and being where they're at right now, because he's just taken his game to another level, and he's the guy that I think going into the NCAA tournament, everybody should be keeping an eye on, because he's going to be, the team. I'm not going to say they're going to come and go as Cam Johnson comes and goes, because of the guys like Luke May and Kobe White. But when he steps up and plays well, you know that this team is going to play well around him. So, I can't thank these three guys enough. They've given us some special memories. We've been talking about these guys, for a while now. We were guys that were, we really liked Luke May. We kind of were one of those people that really started to take notice after, that great performance in the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16 during the national championship run. And, Kenny Williams was a guy that, I do remember that. He was very similar to Andrew Platek, a guy that came in and was pretty much said to be the fantastic shooter. That's never really worked out for him, but he's a guy that's kind of stolen our hearts with the fact that he plays a lot of defense. And then you got a guy like Cam Johnson that, I remember you saying, before there were rumors that he was going to transfer, before he officially committed to Carolina, you were the guy that said, look, we don't really get that many transfers. This isn't really what Carolina does. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Now, you got to be feeling pretty good about it while we sit here today talking about these guys.
Oh, yeah, it's one of those where I stuck my foot in my mouth. Really thankful for Cam. He's probably my favorite guy on this year's team just because he's been the most consistent, and seeing his game grow to what I thought it could be has been fun to watch. I don't want it to be a trend that we do, but, he did want to come there initially. It just didn't work out.
Right.
And now in the long run it did. So just wanted to, take the time to, publicly express our gratitude for these three guys. Hopefully they're not done. Hopefully they're going to find a way to beat Duke Saturday, but then give us a one more month full of members where they move on into their professional careers, whether it's in basketball or in the real world. So just want to thank you for coming on and as my co-host and giving your thoughts. I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to the podcast through Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And Anthony, I didn't give you a chance on the Duke preview, but I'll let you do one now. Just catch us up to speed on what you got going on football-wise before we get out of here.
Well, the Heel Tough blog and its podcast, we've got some great stuff going on. We've got, of course, some camp reports from the first couple of days. We turned to Lee Pace of GoHeels.com and talked to him a little bit about it to see what he had on the team in the first couple of days. Also got a little bit of insight on some of the battles that will be going on throughout spring practice. And he gave us a little bit, but it's still pretty early, so he didn't want to give us too much early on. And then, we got a couple of pieces that'll be coming up. I know I'm writing one currently right now on the evolution of Patrice Rene, who's going to be one of the big-time leaders for this team this year, and a guy that, very similar to, Luke May, has kind of worked his way into being one of those guys that, now is seen as, potentially an NFL draft prospect and a leader on this team after, it seemed like he was sort of cast off during his freshman year. A little bit of different stories, but, a good thing, something to see with Carolina, and, that'll be going up soon. And then hopefully later on this week, we're hoping to talk to Sam Doughton of the Argyle Report and get another, spring camp report, and we'll have some more of those as we go on throughout spring, and especially once we get near the spring game, which will be very, very exciting for us on April 13th, because it should be a fantastic environment out there.
All right. So that's all it is for football. Like you said, we got Duke coming up now tomorrow, and we'll be right here with you guys for the ACC and the NCAA tournament. Just want to thank you guys for joining us. Go Tar Heels.